Welcome to This Week in Health IT News, where we take a look at the news which will impact health IT. This is another field report where we talk with leaders from health systems and organizations on the front lines. My name is Bill Russell, healthcare CIO coach and creator of This Week in Health IT, a set of podcasts, videos, and collaboration events dedicated to developing the next generation of health leaders. Are you ready for this? We're going to do something a little different for our Tuesday Newsday show next week. We're going to go live at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We will be live on our YouTube channel with myself, Drexta Ford, Sue Shade, and David Muntz with Starbridge Advisors to discuss the new normal for health IT. With you supplying the questions with live chat. Also, you can send in your questions ahead of time at hello@thisweekinhealthit.com. I'm so excited to do this, and I hope you will join us. Mark your calendar, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on April 28th. If you want to send the questions, feel free to do that. And you can get to the show by going to thisweekhealth.com/live. This episode and every episode since we started the COVID-19 series has been sponsored by Sirius Healthcare. They reached out to me to see how we might partner during this time, and that is how we've been able to support producing daily shows. Special thanks to Sirius for supporting the show's efforts during the crisis. Now, on to today's show.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining This Week in Health IT. I'm Drexta Ford, CI Security's Chief Healthcare Strategist and President at Drexio Innovation Network. And today we welcome Tony Alongi, System Director of Clinical Engineering at Rochester Regional, to This Week in Health IT. Thanks for being with us here today, Anthony. I know you're exceptionally busy, and we really appreciate you being here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit, maybe a good way to start is tell us a little bit about Rochester Regional and you and your team. And I'm sure everybody really wants to know how it's going with the COVID outbreak there and the work you guys are doing right now.
Sure. So Rochester Regional Health is a 5-system hospital network. The flagship is Rochester General Hospital and Unity Hospital, which are in the metropolitan areas, and we have 3 others in the rural area.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably 50% of the market in the upstate New York, Finger Lakes area. The other is the University of Rochester, and they have a similar type of organization, although they are a teaching hospital. And so we've been together since 2012. We started merging when probably half the country was merging hospitals.
Right.
And we finalized that at the end of 12, early 13, and been developing and growing our organization since then.
Got it. Tell me a little bit about your team and even a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I started with the organization back in 2003 and worked my way up to system director about 3 years ago. I was a supervisor for maybe since 2011 prior to accepting the director's role. We are organized with a system director, a supervisor, and about 20 technicians, and we provide the sourcing for the labor and for the clinical engineering work of ensuring the safety, reliability, and effectiveness of the medical equipment for the system.
Got it. So you do most of the clinical engineering work in-house. You have some contracts. I know every organization is sort of organized differently on that. But
yeah, and we're a blended organization. We try to do as much in-house as possible. We have an imaging team, although we don't have a separate category. So as you get higher up in the ladder, so to speak, you have a technician, you have a senior, and then you have a senior with imaging. And so we do a lot of biomed and imaging work. So some of those technicians have specialized training with our vendors, and we have an in-house agreements. We have some OEM contracts, depending on if it's not worth it to us, from a cost standpoint or manpower standpoint. And we do use some independent service organizations, as they might be more cost effective and they provide similar quality to the OEMs.
Right.
So nice. So we just try to maximize our team and our resources to get the best cost effective way of achieving our goals.
Totally makes sense. Sounds like you guys have a great strategy, a great plan. So I know you're mostly focused on medical devices and medical equipment. in that space, and given the relationships you have with your partners, what are you all seeing in regard to threat activity during the pandemic? What's got you worried, and what have you been sort of really alert on?
Well, I don't think we've changed a whole lot compared to what pre-COVID life. So that team in the IT team, it's a specialized security group. They've been working very diligently over the last few years to cover up what they call the penetration points, looking at all of our policies. As you know, clinical equipment is nowadays tied into a network, whether it's through your EMR or through your internet or telemedicine, etc. So they've been working diligently to ensure that safety, and it slowed things down a little bit. It can be frustrating when you want something done right away, and you got to go through this process of a BAA and answer all these questions to make sure there's no chance of personal health information or protected health information getting into the wrong hands. So, but with respect to COVID, I haven't heard of any particular threats for our organization. Now, that may be because they were keeping it close-vested, or there really hasn't been much more activity than normal.
Okay. Generally speaking, too, there's been sort of this crazy amount of health IT activity over the past month. Tell me about some of your adventures in clinical engineering at Rochester, and how you've been able to keep security integrated into that whole process, because I'm sure you have been juggling a lot of balls.
Yes. So good question, because it happens fast and there's no time to wait and do it, quote unquote, the right way, right? So in the old days, things were done very quickly. The term stat comes up. Well, by nature, IT doesn't work that way. In my experience, it's okay. Hold on, let's scope it out. Let's figure out what's going on. Where are the risks? So we had to do that much quicker. And fortunately, we had processes in place and a network that is easily adaptable to growth. As we manage it, we don't have outside vendors managing it. Even our patient monitoring network, which is we're a GE house. We use what is known as an EV land, meaning that we own it. They bless the architecture, and then we manage it. So the only areas where I think there was some struggle is in we wanted to develop a video system for traditionally non-ICU floors, because we had to create space, right?
So like a tele-ICU kind of workaround.
Yeah, so normal ICUs, they're open or they have glass, and you have one-on-ones. So as we needed to expand that type of care to non-traditional ICU floors, you close the door, keep the COVID in there, but you can't see the patient. So you're monitoring the vital signs. We wanted to be in the leadership, the nursing leadership system. We need to see them. Yes. So we worked with our contractor who provides our security cameras, and set up some IP cameras so they could view the patient without going in. We've done a lot of that kind of remote interfacing, maybe longer cables, push the ventilator into the room closer to the patient, and keep the interface, the GUI, outside through a cable that's longer than traditionally available.
So that the person doesn't have to go into the room? Yeah.
Yes. So we reduce the use and the burn rate on PPE and reduce the exposure risk. Makes
sense. Great innovation. I mean, I think everybody's been thinking outside the box this whole time about how to, especially when PPE started to be the challenge, people really got innovative in ways to extend the life of the stuff they had on the shelf and not use it all up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you had to add a bunch of new ventilators, or have you gone through that drill, and how hard was that? And was there any issues around working cybersecurity parts of that, kind of adding new equipment really quickly?
Well, so I'm not sure how it affected cybersecurity, but to the first part of your question, as we started to see what was happening in New York, and the first few cases became public, and it went upstate a little bit in the New Rochelle area, and some reported cases in our general area, which is Rochester. Some people came from Italy. They got out, and they felt they might have had some exposure. We started to look at what was going to happen by using those models, how that would work. So we immediately reached out to see what we could buy and what the cost was and what kind of funds we had. And we looked at renting. And so we were one of the first people to grab available units that were the similar model that we're used to using. So we grabbed about 10 of those. We looked at third-party repair shops across the country that had them for sale. And we bought a handful of those. But it started happening really quick. So we thought we were ahead of it. We were only ahead of it by 24 hours. And then it just blew up. So now it became very crowded and very,
chaotic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like a bidding war. So
yeah.
You guys just got in right in the nick of time.
Yeah, so some of us were a little bit ahead of it. Some of the leadership was lagging a little bit because they were trying to figure out how we were going to manage this, through an incident command. Should we do it by the local hospitals? Should we do it centralized? And as that few days went by, you went from, we can get you these items in a couple of weeks to, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 15 weeks, 31 weeks. And so we got behind the 8 ball, and understandably so. New York City needed the stuff probably more so than we did. We're prepping. They're buried. They're underwater. And as everyone knows by watching the news what had happened since in the area, whether it's if you're watching what the governor was talking about, sharing and developing a network of sharing healthcare equipment and so forth. So even the vendors stepped up and said, look, even though you may have had this order in for a project down the road, we're going to not ship you that stuff and send it to them, and we'll take care of you after this is over with.
Are you part of that network? Have you all had conversations about how you would wind up ultimately shipping and sharing devices with another organization down the road?
Sure. So we're working with the leadership, the executive leadership and the chief medical officer. We identified what we are using currently, and our current rate of infection went from doubling every 4 days to 8 days, which was good. Some of the distancing and mitigation strategies may be working, or the virus is slowing down for whatever reason. We've identified the percentage of units we could give to the state to be used, along with anything else that we have that was in surplus at the moment, with the understanding when it dies down in that area or they get a handle on it, and if it were to peak in our area, we would then be afforded the same courtesies.
Right. Yeah, Tony, thank you so much for your time. I always try to give everybody that we interview the opportunity to tell us anything else that I didn't ask, because I don't always ask all the right questions. I try to just put it out there. Is there anything that you want to tell your peers across the country, healthcare across the country, stuff that you've done that you think they would find useful or interesting, or anything else that you want to share?
Well, first, just apologize. I didn't have a whole lot to contribute to the cybersecurity world.
No, you were great.
Because we're collaborators with that group. With respect to some of your other questions there at the end, one of the things I'd like to share is the idea of collaborating and innovating with your local universities. We have done that with the Rochester Institute of Technology and Xerox. Xerox is headquartered, and their factory is here in Rochester, New York. So the three of us got together as the University of Rochester, Rochester Regional Health, RIT, and Xerox to modify what is known as the Go vent. And it's a portable vent used in emergency situations. It's kind of one you would put on to wean you off of a more sophisticated critical care vent, or a step to that. So we're going to increase it so that it can be used. We're going to increase the PEEP on it using their design capabilities at RIT and the manufacturing abilities at Xerox to manufacture an improvement to that Go vent.
That's amazing. You guys have done this in pretty short order then, right?
Oh yeah, it was super fast. It was like a 2 or 3 week turnaround. So
that's incredible. How hard or how easy was that? I mean, it sounds like everybody was just all hands on deck.
Yeah, exactly. So the medical community provided the medical input, the RIT, the reverse engineered using, and then did the prototypes using 3D printing, and then the manufacturing people. You tell them what to manufacture, and that's what they do. So,
wow.
And it's not a big blown electronic device. It's it's pieces of plastic, but they have to be constructed in such a way that allows the flow of air.
It seems like 3D printing is kind of blown up in all this too. Have you done any other 3D printing for other uses or other components that you've had to sort of invent?
Yeah, so when it's hard to source a part, especially when it's been end of life, sunsetted, and you can't get parts for it, we've done some things like that. Mostly covers, because you don't want to get into violating FDA 510K issues, and so we helped out with shields for a short period of time, because our capacity is low. So until other manufacturers can pick up the slack, we helped out here and there.
Got it. Hey, again, I know your time's exceptionally valuable. I really appreciate you taking time to share observations and best practices with us, Tony. Thanks again very much, and thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you too, and thank you to everyone out there. I appreciate you having me on, and I tell this to everyone during this time period, is to endeavor to persevere.
Endeavor to persevere. Thanks.
All
I'll
right.
talk to you later.
All right. Take care.
That's all for this week. Special thanks to our sponsors, VMware, Starbridge Advisors, Galen Healthcare, Health Lyrics, Sirius Healthcare, and ProTalent Advisors for choosing to invest in developing the next generation of health leaders. If you want to support the fastest growing podcast in the health IT space, the best way to do that is to share it with a peer. Send them an email, DM them, whatever you do, however you do it. Go ahead and do that, and that would benefit us greatly. We appreciate your support. Please check back often, as we will continue to drop shows until we get through this pandemic together. Thanks for listening. That's all for now.